So ages ago, like at the start of this year, I did 2 videos back to back showcasing the top 20 Game Boy games from the year 1991. It was a super strong 12 months, maybe even the console's best year all told. So much so I actually neglected to do the equivalent from the bottom of that list. Never dare you think that that was because there weren't enough terrible releases though, because of course there were, I just forgot to do it. Just as a side note, there are 2 exquisitely poor ones that I didn't feature on this video, simply because they're actually going to be on a different list in a few weeks' time. Until then, here's the 10 absolute turdiest turds released on Game Boy in 1991. 10. Mysterium. I'm going to start off this list with a sore one. God damn, I wanted Mysterium to be good. It has a really cool atmosphere and a quite unique storyline, and is that sort of late 80s style of point-and-click adventure that Kemco and the like did so well. This one is just so poorly executed from nearly every aspect, with no real puzzling or solving to speak of, instead relying solely on trial and error with terrible combat and softlock after softlock requiring endless restarts. Honestly, years after reviewing it for the first time, I'm still kinda upset by how bad Mysterium turned out to be. 9. The Game of Harmony. Here's another one I feel a little bad about putting on there. It's a harmless little action puzzler where you need to nudge the matching spheres together in the time limit. On computers, this worked really well, but for whatever reason, the Game Boy version suffers from so much input lag and slowdown that the game's just too difficult to ever get your teeth into. They did try, but I kind of feel this one was more developer inexperience than anything else. It was the Code Monkeys' first Game Boy outing, and hey, they certainly redeemed themselves later on, but this is a bit of a shame because it should be perfect for the system. 8. Altered Space, a 3D adventure. So, I hated this the first time I came to it in the chronology, and if you watch the review I did, you'll see that. The isometric thing was not a good example of the style, the levels being too pokey and not using a lot of the screen, plus trying to do the pixel-perfect stuff required was basically impossible, in combination with the controls misalignment. I've perhaps softened a smidge with my opinion since, but it's still not a very good game, I'm afraid. Play Monster Max instead, that thing's phenomenal. 7. Sanrio Carnival. Compared to everything else on this list, this game at least is something you can play. You shouldn't though. It's on here because of how little care, attention, or even ambition is showcased on what is a Hello Kitty title at the end of the day. So boring, I can't even bring myself to say anything else about it. Let's just move on. 6. Double Dribble 5-on-5. I tell you what, there was another basketball title released this year, NBA All-Star Challenge, that can frankly count itself bloody lucky not to make this list. Double Dribble 5-on-5 though is just so unplayable and broken that despite looking pretty good, firmly deserves to be right down there. I can't believe for a second anyone tested this game because there's no way it would have been released in this state otherwise. None of the controls do what they say. Surely a playtester would have been like, you might want to have another look at that? No? Just me? 5. Jeopardy. Trivia games. I'm all about them. When they're done right. This little monstrosity is not done well at all. Having to type out answers using an unresponsive and infuriating keyboard in such a stringent time limit is just not fair, and it's certainly not fun. The AI are complete idiots too, meaning there's not even any challenge. And I'm still at a loss as to what the hell is going on with that theme music. It's probably the worst sound design on the whole system, and that's saying something. 4. G-Arms Operation Gundam. This was like the 3rd Gundam game already, and was a tiny bit better than the first 2, but still absolute turd burgers. I'm just gonna quote my final line from the review as it sums up my thoughts pretty well. SD Command Chronicles Operation Gundam G-Arms, or whatever it's called, is still so far from a playable game. Too brutal, too clunky, too confusing, and an absolute waste of time and resources. Not to mention an IP with so much potential. It was at this point I put Bandai on my revenge list. Yeah, it might be weird for someone in their 30s to have a revenge list, but reviewing Game Boy games does weird things to people. 3. Bart Simpsons Escape from Camp Deadly. Somehow, not actually the worst Simpsons game on the system, if you can believe that. Even so, Camp Deadly is rubbish enough to make it right down here in 1991. The controls and hit detection are trash, the graphics amateurish, the level objectives vapid, and for such a funny TV show as this was, especially back then, there isn't a gram of humour to be found anywhere. The voice synthesis is decent, but my god, would you stop saying "eat my shorts, Bart"? I get it! 2. Fastest Lap. This one's right down there simply because it's completely broken. I've come back to it multiple times now for one reason and another, and I still can't place anywhere in a race. I always finish miles behind everyone else. It's not that I'm crashing, it's that your own car just doesn't go fast enough. All the other racers disappear right at the start, and even if you drive a flawless race, you'll never see them again. So look, here's a little favour I'm asking you guys. For God's sake, please help me out. Fastest Lap makes me question my own sanity, or at the very least my own ability to interpret a game. Still to this day, I feel like I must be missing something, that I'm just doing it wrong, you know? I've mentioned this game a couple of times now, including in a full video review, and no one's corrected me yet, so maybe I am actually right. But if you know how to play this game, for the love of Nigel, tell me, because I'm losing my goddamn mind with it. 1. Zetai Muteki Raijin O. Without hyperbole, one of the worst video games I've ever played, or even seen. This is right down the shitter with titles like Tasmania Story and Monster Truck. The game seems unbeatable at first, until you engage in some stupid menuing at the start of every single fight to at least make your character able to do damage. I had to find that out by translating a tiny document I found on the Japanese equivalent of GameFAQs. It doesn't even say to do this in the manual. Even if you do this, the game is still an absolute catastrophe with zero redeeming features. Hey, at least we don't have to talk about it again until we finally get to the 10 worst Game Boy games of all time list. You can be damn sure it'll be on that bad boy. And yeah, that's our list. If you disagree with any of these, you're probably wrong, but let me know anyway. And if there's anything that you think should have been on the list, then yeah, let me know too. I'm gonna go lie down.